Hi YouTube, it's Kathy, and this is my weekly entertainment wrap-up for April 2nd through 8th. This week I read one book, I watched one show, and I listened to 2 books. Quick travel update, we are currently in Kutná Hora. We are here for the weekend because it was much cheaper than trying to spend this weekend in Prague, and then we were going back to Prague tomorrow, which is Monday. We did, however, have to switch trains in Prague on Friday, so we actually ate pizza at one of the places that Chad used to frequent, which was lovely, and I'm looking forward to actually taking many walking trips around that city. The book I read this week was Sourcery by Pratchet. This is the 5th in the Discworld series, and this is the 3rd of the Rincewind books, which are admittedly not my favorite, mostly because we don't actually focus on Rincewind. We jump around to a bunch of different characters and a bunch of different little side plots, and I don't really care. I just want to have one narrative. I want to actually care about the characters, which it's really hard to do when we're jumping around like that. And ultimately, a lot of the resolution of these books comes down to because magic, which is just not my favorite. That being said, even though I'm behind on the Around the Disc in 800 readathon, I will continue reading, and hopefully I can just knock all of these off my bucket list. The show we watched this week was The Sandman. We watched the entire first season, and it was really fun to watch because I've actually read a bunch of the comics. I read a bunch when I was a kid, and more recently I borrowed the first omnibus, but I didn't read all of it because it's like 900 pages and I had other things to do, so I gave it back before we came traveling. But out of what I read, I'm pretty sure all of it was reflected in the show, and I don't think I've read anything further than that. So I managed to accidentally read as much as I was going to need to read before watching the first season, which was cool. Something I really appreciated about this show is there are a lot of really little details that are sucked directly out of the comic. For example, there are characters in the show that look exactly like the characters in the comic, which is just really cool in my opinion. The show also helped me understand more than the comic because there were little things in the comic that I just really didn't get the first time or the second time, and I saw how more of the overarching plot actually came together while I was watching it in the show. I also didn't know a whole lot about the casting of this show, so it was really fun to see certain actors just pop up here, there, and everywhere. The first audiobook that I listened to this week was Hazel's Theory of Evolution. This is a middle grade book about this girl named Hazel, as you might have guessed. She's 13, and because the school district has redrawn some of the boundaries, she actually has to go to a different school this year, so she won't be going with her best friend, but eventually after this one year they will be reunited at the one high school. She had a pretty tough time growing up through elementary school because there was this one person who picked on her a lot, so you can see why she would be upset by her best friend maybe spending some time with that person now that she's not at the school anymore. In addition, when it comes to family matters, her other mom has tried a couple of times to become pregnant and have her own biological children. However, 3 years ago and 2 years ago, both of those pregnancies ended in miscarriage. As this new school year starts, Hazel finds out that her mother is pregnant again, and she is super worried about this, especially because her older brother is telling her that she basically has to treat this with sunshine and rainbows and kittens and not express any worry or anything that could possibly be bad about this, because he doesn't want their mom to be stressed out. He wants this to go smoothly. She also wants it to go smoothly. Obviously, she would love to have a little brother or a little sister because she was really looking forward to meeting the previous children that didn't come to be, but this whole thing is very much stressing her out. I really enjoyed this book. This book also made me cry. I was just laying in whichever hotel room we were in at the time, and just the sun had gone down and I was too lazy to get up and turn on the lights, and there's just tears coming down my face because it was just all so stressful and sad. And there's just something about reading middle grade books where there's just way too much stress put on the protagonist, where it gets to the point where I just start crying because I feel so badly for all of the stress that is on them from all these multiple different angles. This one is definitely an excellent one to pick up, and I actually picked it up because I wanted to read it ahead of April 4th because that was the day we were putting out recommendations on Instagram for aromantic books, and this fit the bill. So I wanted to make sure I had read it so that I could recommend it if I liked it, which I obviously did. The other audiobook that I listened to this week was a full cast adaptation of both parts of Faust by Johann Wolfgang von Goethe. That's how I'm gonna guess that's pronounced. I don't actually know. Nearly a year ago, I put out a TBR of books I want to read before I turn 40, which is happening in approximately 3 years from now. And this was actually something that was recommended to me super early on when I was putting together that list. Also, when I was revisiting that list and I was looking at that weird last name that I don't know how to pronounce, and I was like, I've seen that name around town a few times because at this point we were in Karlovy Vary, and I looked looked it up, and it turns out it was the same Goethe. He is famously quoted as saying, "There are 3 places in the world I would love to live: Weimar, Rome, and Karlovy Vary." So I had to listen to about the first half of that book while I was sitting in the beer house that actually has his name, Goethe's Beer House, which is down the street from where he used to live. We also saw various things about him in and around town, and when we went on a day trip to another spa town that is very close by, we also saw his resting place, which we're pretty sure is actually just where he used to sit when he was hiking. It's not where his body is, because the monument says Goethe sits, but S-I-T-Z, and we're not entirely sure what that means. But then it only has a 2-year span on it, like 1821 to 1823, so we think that's where he used to like to sit when he was hiking, not where his body is. Anyway, I'm meant to be talking about Faust, not Goethe, which I could go on with more details, but I'm not going to. This is a weird play. Firstly, it's split up into 2 parts, and it should just be 2 different plays. The first one actually called Faust, because that's the one that's actually about Faust, and the second one is just a bunch of mythology and randomness, and I didn't understand it at all, and I actually had to look up a synopsis to kind of figure out what the hell is going on with that, and I honestly don't care about the second half. In the first half, we have Faust. He's been doing all these scholarly things, he gets bored of that, and he decides to make a deal with the devil. Chad has let me know that that monument is to commemorate him staying in Mariansky Lasny. Yeah, so it's not where his body is. He's just looked it up on the internet in the corner while I've been filming. So thank you, Chad. Anyway, Faust's deal with the devil, it's basically to just keep him entertained. He ends up seducing this girl who gives her mother a sleeping potion so that they can do the deed, but then that kills the mother and she ends up pregnant with his baby. And then because they're not married, she drowns that baby when she has that baby, and she's convicted of murder, and this is just a weird play. I just don't know why it's the pinnacle of German literature, but here we are. Not exactly my favorite, although all of it rhymed, even in the translation, so that was good of the translator, I guess, but it's a weird play. I can't say that I recommend it overly, but I'm glad that I finally actually read it, because I read some of it when I was at theater school, but that was many, many years ago, so now I know more about it. I'm not by any means planning to do a deep dive into the text, because I don't care that much. That's it for this week. If you've read, watched, or listened to any of these, let me know about it down in the comments below. On the way down to the comments, if you hit that subscribe button, that would be very nice of you. If you don't feel like leaving a comment but want to make sure that I know you were here, just leave me an emoji or a smiley face if you happen to be on your keyboard. Some people have asked if there's a way to financially support this channel, so I set up a Ko-fi account, which is a digital tipping service. The link for that, as always, is down below. You can like and share this as you see fit, and I will see you very soon. Bye!